Hey homies, I'm Ewashkiw from Adventure Yoga. Thanks for joining me today. Today I've got about a 55-minute practice for you. This is the longest class I've posted in ages on YouTube. And I really hope that you will practice along with me. This is a slow and steady practice to open up. We're going to open up our hamstrings and our inner thighs. So for class today, you are going to need a prop. That's so unusual for me with these classes on YouTube. I tend to not use props, even though I use props a lot in my own practice. The prop I would like you to have today is a couple of blankets. I've got yoga blankets, so that makes it fairly straightforward for me because I can fold them up into thirds and make a nice stack. I'm going to use 2 of them for one pose and 1 of them every other time we use a blanket. I know, you might not have yoga blankets, but if you're going to do this class today, you should probably just use what you've got. So you can use some cushions. If you've got some more dense cushions, those would be great. Like a pillow, maybe you've got a Tempur-Pedic, that might work well. Or you could just use a regular old blanket and fold it up. Cool? Sounds good? Sounds good. So go grab some blankets while the little intro music is playing. It's about 12 seconds long, so you got 12 seconds. And then I'll meet you down on your mat, have a seat, grab your mat. I'll see you there in a second. Yeah, you can always press pause if you need more time. Alright, so as I mentioned in the opening, you will want blankets or cushions for class today. We're going to do a few things involving the blankets. So a bolster is going to be too thick. If you've got yoga blocks, they'll probably be too thick. So if you don't have yoga blankets, because you're not a yoga teacher, you can use a cushion or just a regular old blanket folded up. I'm going to use my yoga blankets because I've got them. So the first thing I want you to do is take one of your blankets or cushions and just pop it under your butt and sit on it. And then bring the soles of your feet together. Badakanasana already. Yeah, we're just getting into it. So you don't have to go into your most intense Badakanasana, but bring your heels closer towards your pelvis. Hold your toes with your hands and sit up tall. Welcome. Today's class is probably a little different than you're used to for my classes, if you're used to my classes. And what I mean by that is we're going to be a little bit slower in our work today. There's going to be a bit more instruction in our work today in terms of there are a couple of prop usage things, and that just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of conversation. Push your feet together. And from the center of your pelvis, stretch out through your inner thighs and stretch out through your knees. If you want to help with that, you can think about tightening up your butt, and that's going to help turn your legs out. While you're sitting here, we're sitting here in Badakanasana or bound angle pose, I'm going to give you a little bit of instructions about what we're doing next, okay? So you don't have to do any of this yet, all you have to do is listen. So we're going to do legs up the wall pose next, or Viparita Karani. And we're going to be there for a few minutes. Now, we'll get out of it and we'll move into other poses. So don't worry, it's not the only thing we're doing, but we will be there for a few minutes because that's when the most benefit of the pose is available to us. What we're going to do to get into the pose is take our blankets or cushions and place them at the baseboard or at the wall, and then you're going to sit on the blankets, lean onto one side on the ground, and you're going to swing your legs up to the wall as you lie on your back, and we'll do legs up the wall pose, Viparita Karani. Now, I know the words might not help you get there, but that will give you one step closer to understanding where we're going once we come out of this and I show it to you. Just gave us something to talk about while we were here. Take your hands and place them on your inner thighs. Push down a little, bring your knees up, feet to the ground. Give yourself a little hug. And then relax. You can come off your prop because I want you to bring your props to the wall. So I'm doing a 2 blanket stack. It makes the thickness about 5 inches or whatever that is, 12 centimeters. And then take your blanket or cushion and bring it right to the wall. So it's at the wall, touching the baseboard. And that's where we're gonna place our props. So that's your prop setup. Once you've got your props there, just stop and watch. However, caveat here for you. If you know Viparita Karani, if you know legs up the wall pose, and you just want to go into that now, you can go into that now. Cool, you'll have a little bit more time there. But if you're new to the pose or new to the entries for it, watch this, I'll talk you through it, and then we'll do it together. So I'm gonna instruct it first as a demonstration. So don't do this yet. Watch and learn. It's a good way to learn. So what I want you to do is, in a moment, you're going to place your butt on the blanket with your hip at the wall. Then you're gonna have to come down to the ground. So now you have to lean onto your side, move your hips over onto the blanket, onto the cushion, and lean onto your left side. And then we've got to get our legs up the wall and onto our back. So you roll onto your back and turn your legs and have them go up the wall. It's really that simple. There are a couple of adjustments we'll make here, but that's it. And to come out, you'll bend your knees, and it's the opposite. You turn onto your side and sit up, except that when we come out, we're going to go into child's pose. So do this with me. You've got your blankets at the wall or your cushions. Okay, now take your butt up onto the blanket so that your hip is touching the wall, and then lean over onto your side, and as you do that, you'll have to pick your butt up and just move it onto the blanket so that your hip stays on the blanket. So your butt-hip combo is on the blanket, you're lying down on the ground, and then you have to turn onto your back and swing your legs up the wall. Once you get there, you can push your heels into the wall and then lift your butt and move it and adjust if you need to. You can also use your upper arms and push your upper arms down to the ground to be able to lift your hips or even adjust your chest as necessary. And if your hips have slid far away from the wall, you can take your hands overhead underneath your shoulders like you were going to do full wheel and use that to push and wiggle you closer to the wall. Your hips don't have to be exactly at the wall. Mine tend to be just a tiny bit away from the wall. Stretch your legs up the wall and have your legs straight up the wall, if possible. Have your heels about hip distance apart. And then take your right hand, place it on your lower belly. Take your left hand and place it over your heart. Viparita Karani, legs up the wall pose. Take a couple of breaths here to settle. If it's relaxing for you to close your eyes, close your eyes. And welcome. Relax your toes, your feet, and your ankles. Viparita Karani is a passive hamstring opener. And today I want us to work on opening our hamstrings and opening our inner thighs, our adductors. Finding a little more length or flexibility there. So we're starting here with this passive hamstring opener. And what that means is you don't really have to do very much once you get into the shape. With our legs straight and our hips flexed like this, it is stretching our hamstrings, whether we're really aware of it or not. You will be aware of some of the hamstring stretches we do today, but this is one that's just gentle. It also helps us get this 90-degree flexion at our hip to be something that's really just drilled into our body with our back straight, hips flexed. It's much harder to do when we're sitting upright or when we're standing and folding forward. So enjoy this passive version here. You may notice that your feet start to feel a little funny as they start to have a little less blood flowing up to them. So the blood can still get up there, don't worry, your heart's pretty powerful. It's still going to get the blood flowing into your toes, but they'll start to feel maybe a little sleepy, a little chilly even. But do relax your legs so that the work really is just happening to you by the shape that you've got yourself into. a lot of our yoga practice is focused on going inside. It's focused on a really personal journey. As much as we might practice in a room with other people sometimes, our practice really happens on our mat, on this limited space that we have. It happens on the mat, it happens in our body, it happens for us. And that's all really good. It's all really important work. But the idea of this self-care and this personal work is that we can then open up. Yoga is about helping us open up. There's always more. And our yoga can help us step out into the world and be part of creating more. Helping the world open up, helping our friends open up. So while we do a lot of internal work as we practice, that work is also to help us step out into the world. Open up. Open up our emotions, open up our heart, open up our mind, open up our possibilities. A lot of my classes are very active. And if that's what you're hoping for, you can definitely find it on YouTube. You can just search Yoga for Strength. That's a good adventure yoga series of classes that are much more active than this class. Although soon we're going to start moving. This is not a vinyasa practice though. This is about opening up. Open up your eyes if they're closed and look at your feet. Wiggle your toes. Wiggle your toes to make sure that your feet are awake. And then move your ankles a little. And once your feet are awake, if they were asleep, bend your knees and slide your heels down the wall. Turn onto your side. And we're going to go into child's pose. So try not to come up to upright as you turn over onto your side. Sort of crawl over onto your mat and come into child's pose with your arms stretched straight out in front of you. Balasana. You can rest your elbows on the ground here. Push down through your hands, push down through your forearms. And then keep your forearms where they are, but energetically pull back a little, and then just very slightly lift your forehead off the ground. Pull back towards your knees with your forearms, stretch your spine longer, and bring your forehead back down to the ground. Now push down and forward with your hands and your forearms. And shift your hips back towards your heels a little more. Get longer through your sides. Just get a little more compacted into your child's pose. Slide your hands underneath your shoulders and come up to all fours. Badakanasana. Bring your knees so that they're about hip distance apart. Bring your hands so they're about shoulder distance apart, and have your knees under your hips, hands or wrists under your shoulders. And let's do a few rounds of cat and cow. For cat pose, round your back, move your face towards your hips, hips towards your face. Stretch your spine. Oh, that feels good. And for cow pose, sort of the opposite. Move your hips back and up. Move your chest forward and up. Stretch across the front of your belly. Back into cat. And cow. And cat. cow. And then come into neutral, Badakanasana, all fours. Give your butt a little shake. Swing your feet around and sit down. Bring your feet down to the ground in front of you. Place your feet flat on the ground and bring your right knee up. Turn your right leg out. Grab your left, with your left hand, grab your right foot and place your right foot over your left knee. Seated Hindulasana. Move your right knee away from your right shoulder and sit up tall. Touch your fingertips down to the ground. I like fingers pointing backwards. Just gives me a little chance to push back with my fingers and then tip my pelvis forward a little and sit up tall. See if you can feel the little bony bits at the bottom of your butt here and work to tip your pelvis so that the bony bits are touching the mat. You probably have some clothes and skin between your bony bits and the mat, but you know what I mean. Hopefully you've got some bones and skin and clothes between these bony bits and the mat, hopefully. What's going on? It's morning here when I'm filming today, here in Vancouver, and I'm feeling a little silly. Those bony bits have a name. They're called your ischial tuberosities. Tuberosities are just little bony bits, so they're little bony protrusions, but bits where the bones stick out. And they stick out because a muscle attaches there. Your hamstrings attach to the bony bits at the bottom of your butt. And we're getting a hip opener here while we're here. Get a little anatomy lesson, get a little hip opener. All right, bring your right knee down to the ground. No, your right foot down to the ground. I've only had one coffee today as well, so please forgive any little slip-ups like that. And then just here with both feet on the ground, hold the fronts of your knees, and then move your hips back and forward. Roll them backwards and forwards and see if you can feel those little bony bits at the bottom of your pelvis. I can really roll over them. And what we want is we want to be up on them. So we don't want to be too far back. That's like Netflix butt and a rounded back. And we don't want to be too far forward on them so that our lower back's overly arching, but somewhere in between. So that we're really just perched on those two little bumps. And then bring your left foot up and over. Bring your left ankle above your right knee. Seated Hindulasana. Touch your fingertips to the ground behind you. And then think about your butt and work to get your sit bones on the ground. Move your left knee away from your shoulder and sit up tall. Feel those little bony bits. Ischial tuberosities. Just means that they're on the bottom of your pelvis and they are a little bony protrusion. It's important to us today because it helps us find the natural curves of our spine when we're sitting. And also it's where our hamstrings go into our pelvis, and we're going to work on hamstring length today. So knowing where our hamstrings attach and where we can move to find more length is important. All right, bring your left foot down to the ground and then turn and face the long edge of your mat. Take your left foot out to the left, like we're going to do Janushirshasana, but we're not. Take your left heel roughly to your left front corner of your mat, and then take your right foot out to the right as well. Now, my legs are pretty wide here. Your legs don't have to be this wide, but have your legs as wide as you can here, while keeping your legs straight and keeping your knees facing the ceiling, toes facing the ceiling. And then just like we did in Hindulasana, turn your fingers around, touch the ground behind you, push down, and then think about your sit bones and see if you can get the bony bits of the butt onto the mat. So get your sit bones pushing down into the ground. And if you can't here, that's okay. We're going to refine this and work on it. So this is our setup for Badakanasana. And this is actually what this whole pose is based, or this whole class is based around. We're going to work on opening up this part of our body so that we can find the inner thigh length and our hamstring length to help us find this pose. Place your hands on the ground in front of you. This pose, Badakanasana, it's sometimes called straddle pose or seated straddle, seated wide leg forward fold, and variations of that. Place your hands on the ground in front of you. Push down and pull back a little. See if you can tip your pelvis forward and be right up on your sit bones, and then lengthen through your spine. And smile. we're just going to be here. We're not going to fold forward, and just notice what's happening in your body. Even though we're like 15 minutes into class, it's actually really early, right? We've done 3 poses before this. Your body probably isn't ready for Tadasana, but I wanted you to feel where you are in the pose now, so that in like half an hour when we come back to it, you'll be like, oh, maybe I notice a difference, right? So notice the pose, because I want you to notice where you go with this pose when we come back to it. Noticed? Noticed. Take your hands, grab your inner thighs, and then pull up. So your knees bend, your heels slide in. Bring your knees together, wrap your arms around your legs and give yourself a little hug. And then come into downward facing dog, please. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Bend your left knee when you get there and straighten your right leg. Push your hands down and forward. Think about your sit bones. Now that we are all pretty aware of our sit bones, lift through your sit bones, lift up, and move your sit bones back. Stretch your right heel back and down so you get more stretch for your calf muscles. Just going to open up our legs if we're going to do this wide leg forward fold. And then change sides. Bend your right knee, straighten your left leg. Think about your sit bones, lift them up and move them back. Stretch your left heel back and down. And then change sides again. Go back to the first side. And change sides again. Go to the second side. Bend both knees, look forward, and walk forward. Come to Uttanasana at the top of your mat. Touch the ground. So bend your knees as much as you need to so that you can touch the ground. And if you don't need to bend your knees, you don't need to. Straighten your legs. Touch the ground though, everybody. Stretch your head down towards your feet. Think about your sit bones, those little bony bits at the bottom of your butt. You can even touch them. That might be useful here. Then pick them up. Lift up through your sit bones. Stretch down through your head. Come up onto your fingertips and straighten your arms. Lift your chest for Arta Uttanasana. Lift through your sit bones, and then imagine your upper back. Move your upper back forward and lift it. Get longer through your spine. And with that length, fold over your legs, Uttanasana. Place your hands flat and step it back to plank pose, Balasana. Step back, bring your shoulders over your wrists, Balasana, plank pose. Tone your belly. And then slowly lower down to Chaturanga. If hovering and holding your body there is not something you do with your knees off the ground, no problem. Bend your knees and bring them down to the ground as you bend your elbows, lower, and hover. And then everybody come all the way down to the ground. Untuck your toes and place your feet flat behind you. Stretch your arms back behind you and turn your palms down to face the ground. Push your hands down, push your feet down. Tighten up your butt. Just your head, lift your head and chin off the ground. Look forward. Then lift your shoulders off the ground. And then think about your upper back. Lift from your upper back, lift forward and up. Shalabhasana variation, locust pose. Lift through your upper back and come down. Push your feet down. Tighten up your butt. Push your belly down, your lower belly. Push your hands down. Keep your shoulders down. Lift your head, look forward. Lift your shoulders, and then from your upper back, lift forward and up. And come down. Place your hands under your shoulders for downward facing dog. Tuck your toes, downward facing dog. Lift your hips, do your best. Push it up and back, downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Push through your hands, lift through your sit bones, lift up and back. Stretch your heels back and down. Bend your knees. Look past your hands and walk or float to the top of your mat for Arta Uttanasana. Come up on your fingertips, straighten your arms, lift your chest. If you can also straighten your legs while touching the ground here, do. Lengthen through your spine and fold deeply over your legs, Uttanasana. And then stand up and reach up, Urdhva Hastasana. Bring your arms to your sides, Tadasana. Bring your feet together, Tadasana. Stretch your arms down at your sides. Turn your right leg out for Vrikshasana. Bring your right foot, tree pose, on the inside of your left leg, on your calf, or fully above your left knee. Bring your hands in front of your heart, or stretch your arms up overhead. Vrikshasana. So this will help us get a little more inner thigh stretch, create a little more flexibility for our adductors by engaging our butt. Yep. Sound of my butt being touched for effect. Try your butt underneath you and stretch out through your inner thigh. Stretch your right knee out to the right. Told you I was feeling a little silly today. Stretch up, push down through your left foot. We also need our hip flexors active for this pose, so let's make sure that they're working. Turn your right knee forward, turn the sole of your right foot back, and then straighten your right leg out in front of you. All you gotta do is your best here. Utthita Padasana. And then we're gonna go to a thigh stretch. So take your right leg back, bend your knee with your right hand, grab your foot, bring your left hand onto your hip. I'm just gonna turn a little so you get a slightly different view of this. Pull your right heel towards your butt, stretch your right knee back and down, and look forward. Roll your shoulders back, lift through your chest. Keep your right heel towards your butt, but let go of your right foot. Now you just have to use your muscles. Pull your right heel in and hold for 3, 2, 1. Release your right leg and shake it off. Because that can make your hamstrings go, oh, crazy, right? Did you feel that? Mine were just about starting to. I bet on the next side they will, because the left side is just a little weaker. I'm right-handed. What you gonna do? Work on it. We work on it. Turn your left leg out. Bring your left foot up into tree pose, Vrikshasana, so left foot on your right calf, or all the way above your right knee on the inside of your right thigh. Bring your hands in front of your heart, or stretch your arms up and overhead. Vrikshasana, tree pose. Tighten up your left butt. That's going to increase the tension between your left foot and your right leg, which is awesome because you can use that and stretch out through your inner left thigh, stretch out through your left knee. Utthita Padasana, extended one leg pose. Turn your left knee forward, sole of your left foot faces the back, and then straighten your left leg out in front of you. If you can get parallel to the ground, cool. If not, also cool. Do your best. Utthita Padasana. Just stretch it out, open up, and then thigh stretch. Take your left leg back, grab your foot with your hand, right hand to your hip. Pull your left heel towards your butt, and then keep your left heel close to your butt with just your muscles. And hold for 3, 2, 1, let it go. I can't do 4. That would have been a little too much. Shake it off, and then step your feet wide. So face the long edge of your mat, step your feet wide. How wide? That wide. Well, wrist distance wide. So have your ankles roughly as wide as your wrists when your arms are stretched out to your sides. Place your hands on your waist. Toe on your belly. Squeeze your legs in a little. Stretch up through your spine. Think about your sit bones. So we're going to flex at our hip here, touch the ground, but move your sit bones back and lift them up to flex at your hip. Fold forward, touch the ground. Prasarita Parutanasana. Wide leg forward fold. Very similar to Badakanasana,
except that we're standing instead of sitting. Standing has a couple of advantages. Gravity. Gravity's a good one. Right? Take your hands off the ground for a moment and just hang. Stretch your spine longer. Let gravity help. Touch the ground again. It's just better for your hamstrings to be touching the ground. Bend your knees a little, speaking of your hamstrings. So that's this next bit's super hard to do when we're seated because the ground is there, limiting the movement of our pelvis. But here we can get more movement. Lift through your sit bones. Keep your knees bent. Lift through your sit bones. It's going to tip you forward more. It's going to help you flex at your hip more. Then squeeze your legs in and see if you can straighten them again and straighten them. Prasarita Parutanasana. Lift through your sit bones. Walk your hands forward a little so that they're underneath your shoulders. Come up on your fingertips and straighten your arms, lift your chest. So it's like half forward fold, except it's half wide leg forward fold. It's Arta Prasarita Parutanasana. Think about your sit bones, lift them up. Think about your upper back, move it forward and up. Get longer in your spine. Keep that length and fold forward again. Stay as long in your spine as you can. At some point you might need to round it. That's okay. It's fine here. It's fine today. Prasarita Parutanasana. Place your hands on your hips and lift your torso. Stretch your arms out to your sides again. Look at your left foot. We're going to Trikonasana, triangle pose. Turn your left foot forward 90 degrees. Straighten both legs. Turn your palms out to the side. Shift forward a little and side bend. Stretch your right arm up so that your wrist is over your left wrist as best as you can. And then we want to get a little more inner thigh stretch on your left inner thigh. It's one of the things we can get here in Trikonasana with the right focus. So think about your left sit bone. Pull it back towards your right foot and then move your left sit bone just a little to the right. Tuck it underneath you. You may feel a little more stretch on your inner left thigh. You can help with that by pushing your big toe down. Push your inner edge of your left foot down. And come up. Change your feet. Turn on your feet so that your right foot is facing out to the right. Your left foot is facing the short edge of your mat. Turn your palms out to the side, shift forward, and side bend. Work to bring your left wrist over your right wrist and look up. Push through your feet. Think about your right sit bone. Pull your right sit bone back towards your left foot and then move it just a little over to the left. That's like tuck your right sit bone underneath you. Push through the inner edge of your right foot. Get a little more opening for your inner right thigh. You'll probably notice that sensation more on one side than the other. We all tend to favor one side over the other. Which side is it for you? A lot of what we do here is about noticing and then learning how we can open up from where we are now. Open up, stretch out, smile, and come up. Rise up. Make your feet parallel to each other. Place your hands on your waist again. We're going to go into the Prasarita Parutanasana once more. Think about your sit bones. Move your sit bones back and lift them up and fold forward. Touch the ground. As we come into this forward fold, one of the reasons this is easier than seated is our hips can move back behind our ankles. And they don't get to do that when we're seated unless you're sitting on a mattress, I suppose. You could practice this on a mattress and then you can move your butt down further than your ankles. Not this, but Ewashkiw, the seated version of this. Look at your left foot. Take your left hand and grab your left big toe. Reach your fingers underneath it. Look at your right foot. Grab your right big toe. Wrap your peace fingers underneath it. Pull on your feet. Stretch your spine down. In the final form of Ewashkiw, we're holding our big toes and we're folding forward and bringing our chest down to the ground. I don't practice that variation, so don't worry, when we get there, you won't need to either, but if you can, you can. All right, bring your hands back to center. Straighten your arms, lift your chest. And heel toe your feet in. So turn your heels in, toes in, heels in, toes in. And stand up. And sit down. All right. Back to the props. So for this next couple of poses, I'm going to use one blanket instead of two. I'm just going to move one out of the way. Take your blanket and sit on it. Not so bad. Sounds pretty good so far. Where are we going though? Janusharshasana. Stretch your left leg out and bring your right foot onto the inside of your left leg, like tree pose. If it is a little awkward to have your prop parallel to the long edge of your mat, you can turn it so that it faces the same direction as your pelvis is going to turn or your left leg is facing. Slight adjustment you might like. Now, think about your sit bones here. Even like you can feel them. Take your fingers, feel your sit bones and pull them back a little bit, but then sit up on your sit bones. Lifting your pelvis up with the blanket is to help you find the natural curves of your spine, to help your lower back draw in, and to help really get as much length in your spine as possible so that when we fold forward, it's with a long spine, it's with a long back, to get the most benefits of it. Turn to face your left leg. If you would like two blankets here, if you're feeling that your lower back is rounding still, you can grab a second blanket. Stretch your arms up overhead. Stretch up. Draw your lower back in, move the front of your ribs back, lift through your upper back. Lift forward and up. And then start to flex at your hip, lean forward, and reach forward. Keep your left leg straight, and if you can hold your left foot while keeping your left leg straight, do. But if you can't, you can hold your left leg somewhere, either on your shin or on your thigh, where you can hold it and keep your left leg straight. And then pull on your leg. Think about your sit bones. Move your sit bone back. Move the front of your ribs back. And then move your upper back forward and lift it up. And then pull your chest forward, round your upper back, and fold over your left leg. You may find that when you come into the fold, you can take your hands closer to your foot and still keep your left leg straight. You can do that if it's possible. Pull on your leg, push your leg into your hands. And although there's very little movement here, move your left sit bone back. Stretch your head towards your left foot. Janusharshasana. This is really good for helping us open up our hamstrings. Pull on your leg, lift your head and chest, and sit up. Keep your left leg where it is. We're just going to move a transition through wide leg, but we're not going to come into the forward fold yet. Take your right leg wide. Open your right leg out wide. Bring your left leg in so that your left foot is on the inside of your right leg. You may need to adjust your prop a little bit here. Totally normal. Straighten your right leg out. Turn and face your right leg. Think about your sit bones and actually be active with your sit bones. Pull them back and then sit up so that you're sitting on your sit bones. Stretch your arms up overhead. Move your lower back forward, front of your ribs back, upper back forward and up, and then start to flex at your hip. Reach forward, and same thing as the other side. Hold your leg where you can keep your leg straight and hold it. Pull on your leg, lift your chest, and fold over your right leg. If your back rounds, that's totally normal. I think I only know, well I do, I only know one person who does Janusharshasana without a rounded back. Pull on your legs, stretch your head towards your foot. Oh yeah,
Good one. Feel the back of your right leg, right? We're working to get our hamstrings more open here. We also get the nice passive inner thigh stretch on the left leg, so we get the adductors and the hamstrings both getting an opening here. Think about your sit bone, your right sit bone. Move it back. Stretch your chest towards your right foot. Janu Shirshasana. Pull on your foot or your leg. Lift your head and chest. And sit up.
Alright, Paschimottanasana. So turn on your, stretch both legs out in front of you. I just can't do it facing the camera because then my feet would be out of shot. So I'm going to turn it sideways. Legs straight out in front of you, set up in Dandasana. So feel your sit bones in the blanket and sit up tall. Place your hands on the ground or on the blanket beside you, sit up. Move your lower back forward, move the front of your hips back, and lift through your upper back. Stretch your arms up overhead. Flex at your hips and move from the back of your ribs forward. Reach for your feet, and if you can hold your feet with legs straight, do. But if you need to bend your knees to hold your feet, don't. Instead, just hold your legs up higher. Hold your calves or hold your thighs. So keep your legs straight because we want the hamstring opening here. Think about your sit bones. Move your sit bones back. Move your chest forward and up. And then round your back and fold over your legs. Paschimottanasana. I'm always amazed at how much work I can do on my hamstrings and still feel them. Still feel like there's more opening that can be done there. Push your heels down. Be conscious of the back of your knees. So we're sitting on props. So the back of your knees will be off the ground, and that's good. Keep your knees active, but also move your sit bones back. Stretch your chest forward. And fold a little more deeply over your legs. Paschimottanasana. Lift your head and chest and sit up all the way. Here we are, Upavishtakonasana. Turn to face the long edge of your mat again. Sit on your prop. And if you are, itchy nose, if you are feeling that your lower back is still rounding, you can grab your other blanket or cushion and sit on that as well. So you'll just be a little higher up with your hips. That helps you find a little more tilt of the pelvis, helps you find a little more length for your hamstrings. So it's great prop usage here. Everybody sit on a prop, even if you're used to this. Stretch your legs out in front of you, sit on a blanket. Take your legs wide. So I really like to use the corners of my mat as a guideline for where to aim my heels. I know some students who could use the center line of their mat to be as wide as their legs go. Mine don't go that wide. And some of you, though, this will be way too wide, and you'll be like, no, I'm just gonna go here, Stephen. And that's cool. Take your heels out as wide as you can keep your legs straight and sit on your sit bones. Sit up tall. Take your fingertips back behind you. Have your fingers facing behind you and push down and forward a little so that you can sit up tall, so that you can find the height in your spine. Move the front of your ribs back. Imagine that someone's hand is between your shoulder blades and then they're gently lifting your upper back forward and up. Then bring your hands in front of you. Remember way back in child's pose when I had you pull back towards you a little to get a little more length in your spine? Maybe not. That's okay. We're going to do that here. Pull back a little with your fingers. They don't have to move back. Just pull back energetically. Tip your pelvis forward a little more and lift your upper back forward and up. Get more length in your spine. And then shift forward a little. Flex at your hip. So move from the back of your ribs. See if you can get your forearms down to the ground. Now, my back has had to round a lot to get my forearms down to the ground, and I don't want my back rounding for Upavishtakonasana, so I'm going to back up. I'm going to come back to fingertips and stretch up through my spine. We all have our own area of play in each pose, right? And my Upavishtakonasana today is going to be way more upright than yours might be, but that's okay. This is where I am today. Where are you? This is about finding the ability to open up based on what we've got, what we're working with, and where we are. So if your forearms are on the ground or your fingertips are on the ground, it's all the same. Pull back towards your hips a little, lift through your chest. Shift your chest forward a little more, working to keep the length in your spine. If you can fold forward all the way and bring your breastbone down to the ground here, you may. That's absolutely where the pose goes. And if you've already got really open hamstrings and a really strong ability to flex at your hip, you might be able to go there. If you want to try something a little further, you can grab your toes, wrap your fingers, your peace fingers around your toes, just like we did for just a moment in Prasarita Parutanasana, and then stretch your chest forward. Now for me, this is causing lots of rounding in my back, so I'm just going to back off. But if that's for you, that's for you. Everybody think about your knees and have your knees facing towards the ceiling. There'll be a tendency for them to turn out more. Instead, turn them in and have them face up. This is Upavishtakonasana. Whatever variation you're doing, it is Upavishtakonasana for you today. Sit up tall. Grab the inner edges of your thighs. Grab your inner thighs. That's what I'm trying to say. And then pull up. Pull your heels in, bend your knees, bring your legs together, wrap your arms around your legs, and give yourself a little hug. We did it. Upavishtakonasana. How did that feel compared to your first one? Mine felt so different. What was that like? Oh yeah, that's what that was like. Nice. That's what practicing's all about. Being able to notice the differences, see where you can go, see how you might be able to open up and go out into the world a little bit more. Nice work. Next is lie down on your back and stretch out. So look to have some space. Just move this blanket out of the way for me. And then lie down on your back. Stretch your legs out. Stretch your arms up and overhead. Point your toes and stretch. Stretch so much that your middle back starts to arch. Your lower back arches. Stretch it out. And relax. We've done a lot of hip flexion work today, so let's just make sure our hips are open. Bend your knees, place your feet on the ground. Bandha Sarvangasana, bridge pose. Bring your forearms off the ground. Bring your upper arms onto the ground. So, aka bend your elbows, point your fingers up to the ceiling. Just got that a little complicated. More complicated than it needed to be. Push your upper arms down, push your shoulders down. Lift your butt up. Bandha Sarvangasana, bridge pose. Interlace your hands underneath you. Hold your hands, tuck your shoulders in. Straighten your wrists and lift your hips. So today we're using this primarily as a hip opener. So push your feet down, pull your feet back a little, tuck your butt underneath you, stretch your sit bones towards your knees, and lift your hips. Release your hands and lower your hips down to the ground. Separate your feet as wide as your mat. Bend your elbows out to the sides and turn your palms up. We call this cactus arms. Look over your right shoulder and turn your knees to the left. Turn so your knees come down to or towards the ground.
Look over your right shoulder. We'll come back to this side, but first let's go up through center. Take your knees over to the right, look to the left. Bring your knees up to center. Look to the right, take your knees to the left. Karani asana, or windshield wiper pose. Come back up through center. Take your knees to the right, look to the left. Come back up to center. And bring your knees into your chest. Wrap your arms around your legs. Lift your head and shoulders. And draw yourself into the tiniest version of yourself that you can. We go inside. We find the seed of who we are so that we can open up. So that we can take that out into the world and share it. And help make the world a better place. You make the world a better place. Just by being you. Pretty cool, right? Rest with that. Shavasana. Rest in the knowledge that you make the world a better place. Just by being you. Stretch your legs out in front of you. Rest on your back. Turn your palms up at your sides. Allow your legs to relax and turn out. Close your eyes. Shavasana. Shavasana is the ultimate passive pose in yoga. You don't have to do anything except rest. Or to even relax your breath and breathe naturally. Relax your inner thighs. Relax your butt. Relax your eyes and your forehead. Let go of so much that you're just fully open. Start to deepen your breath. Move your fingers and your toes. Move your wrists and your ankles. And if it feels good, stretch your arms up overhead again. Do what you need to do to get your body ready to sit up. And when you're ready, bend your knees, turn onto your side, and come up to seated. And come to a seated position. Bring your hands in front of your heart and close your eyes. Sit up tall. Thanks for your work today. Thanks for working to find the space to open your body up, to open your inner thighs, to open your hamstrings, to open your heart and your mind. Our practice can help us open up into the world and share our skills, our knowledge. Share yourself. You make the world a better place. Share that with the world. We can use our practice to find the ability to open up more with strength and flexibility. That's our practice. Thank you so much for practicing. Namaste. Personally, I really enjoy this type of slow, steady work to open us up. And I hope that you did too. I get a lot out of a really super challenging class where I get sweaty. I get a lot out of the classes where it really pushes my edge and makes me like do arm balances that I'm like, oh, this is like taking everything I've got. But this kind of class takes everything I've got just in a different way. And I hope that you got some of that as well, that it helped you feel your body open up and you can see the difference between the first Ewashkiw and that last. And yeah, that's what our practice is for. Learning more, feeling more, being more. If you would like to do another class with me on another day, you can just click right there, add that class to your watch later list. And if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, please do. Just takes a second. Click my picture right over there, and then you can click the little bell icon that comes up to get notifications as well. If you got any questions, put it in the comments below, and I'll get back to you. Thanks, homies. See you soon.